Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a totally fascinating intersection. What happens when classical Islamic jurisprudence meets the hypermodern glass and steel skyline of Dubai? We're diving into a source that evaluates this famous master plan not just as a feat of engineering, but through the lens of ancient social and religious frameworks.
Take a look at this. The cover of our source text brilliantly captures the exact tension we're digging into today. That striking juxtaposition between traditional religious architecture, grounded in centuries of history, and a gleaming, futuristic skyline. How do these two worlds actually coexist structurally and socially? Well, that's the core question our source answers.
All right, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a modern Islamic city, move on to analyzing Dubai's urban plan, check out the four urban entities, the social role of mosques, residential distribution, and wrap up with assessing social cohesion. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the modern Islamic city. Okay, so the crucial anchor here is this classical principle Jab el-Manfa'a wa daf el-Madara, basically bringing benefit and repelling harm. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical concept, right? The author actually uses this as the absolute benchmark for evaluating the city's physical layout. It asks a super practical question. Does the way a city is literally built actively promote the public good while minimizing harm? Everything we look at from here on out is measured against this exact standard. Moving to Section 2, analyzing Dubai's urban plan. Now, what's really intriguing about this source is the methodology. The author sets out to impartially analyze Dubai's master plan strictly through the lens of holistic Sharia objectives. So, this isn't your standard critique of traffic flow or zoning laws. It's a deep structural audit. The author documents both the positives and the negatives currently on the ground, basically creating a framework to see if the modern reality matches up with the traditional ideal. Section 3, the four urban entities. By dividing the city into these four pillars, urban, social, economic, and environmental, the author makes sure we're getting a holistic view. It really proves that urban planning goes way beyond just, pouring concrete and throwing up glass facades. It's about engineering an entire living ecosystem where human beings interact, trade, and actually live. For our focus today, we're going to zoom in real close on that second pillar, the social entity. Section 4, the social role of mosques. Here, the text introduces another classical concept, hifz al-din, or preserving religion. But listen, here is the key takeaway. In the context of this specific urban analysis, this isn't just about personal theology. The author applies it impartially as a highly practical, sociological metric. It's literally a way to measure how well physical spaces integrate the community and maintain those shared cultural bonds. And the physical embodiment of this metric? The neighborhood mosque. The source highlights that it isn't just a place designed for prayer. It's geographically placed to act as the social anchor of the whole community. Think about a hyper-diverse city like Dubai, where over 200 nationalities live and work side by side. The local mosque basically functions as this critical melting pot where completely different cultures intersect and connect on a daily basis. To actually quantify this, the author notes that residents visit the local mosque up to 5 times a day during weekends and holidays. Just pause and think about that frequency of interaction for a second. Compared to typical Western urban centers, that is a massive amount of community engagement. It physically turns the center of the neighborhood into a bustling social hub where neighbors are just constantly running into each other. And hey, even on busy work days, the source observes that residents visit around 3 times a day. This really demonstrates the building's continuous function as a vital community connector. It ensures that the social fabric is woven together multiple times a day. Every single day, right there in the heart of the residential block. Which brings us to Section 5, de facto residential distribution. So when you look at a massive, rapidly expanding city like this, you might honestly wonder, are there strict, top-down legal zoning laws dictating exactly who lives where? Does the city force different social groups into different blocks? Well, the source reveals that the reality is actually way more organic than that. The text neutrally observes a really prevalent de facto separation that's driven largely by custom and economics. Generally speaking, the author notes that citizens typically reside in single-family residential villas, while expatriates and foreign workers predominantly live in larger apartment buildings and designated accommodations. But what the author really emphasizes here is that this distribution is absolutely not forced by some rigid official mandate or specific residential law. Actually, it's more like it naturally forms these enclaves of people who happen to share the same customs, social ties, and economic realities. People organically gravitate toward housing that fits their specific community needs, and that results in geographically separate but socially compatible zones.
Section 6. Assessing social cohesion. Now we have to ask the ultimate question that the author poses. Does this organic residential separation, even when it's anchored by local community hubs like mosques, actually bring benefit and repel harm like the classical theory demands? Does it fulfill that holistic social metric we talked about earlier? Well, the text reaches a pretty fascinating conclusion. By impartially evaluating the data, the author states that the current de facto residential distribution pattern hasn't fully achieved the ideal social integration outlined by the academic theory. While individual, isolated neighborhoods might have incredibly strong internal bonds, the broader separation between different housing types, and obviously different demographics, kind of creates a gap between the reality on the ground and the ultimate goal of a completely cohesive, unified urban society.
And that leaves us with a massive, lingering question. As our cities race into the future, building taller and faster, how can we truly engineer cohesive communities? How do we ensure that the spaces we build actually bring us together, rather than just, housing us side by side? Because as this source brilliantly illustrates, the physical layout of our streets holds an incredible amount of power over the social layout of our lives.